So the desert, probably Old School RuneScape's most changed region between Trailblazer 1 and Trailblazer Reloaded. And there's just been so much content added here that this is going to feel completely different than it did last time, which is super cool for returning players who probably didn't even consider the desert because there was almost nothing here. The only big highlight was you could do Desert Treasure 1 and get Ancients. But if you didn't want Ancients, the only other reason to go here really was that there was some really easy points to do between things like Pyramid Plunder or Squirt Juices that were pretty low effort that were worth a lot. So for those really chasing Dragon Cup and wanted some easy points, this was a great way of doing it. But that mentality has switched on its head. Desert is no longer a support region. It's actually one of the main regions that if you might be picking because of the PVM and the gear content that now lives here. First, obviously, is Tombs of a Basket, Raids 3. Now, Raids 3 has a lot of things going for it that are really good. First, it's very accessible. If you've never raided before and you're looking at going into leagues to get some overpowered relics, to get some decent gear, and then go and try to learn this content, this is a great way of doing it. Not only that, but doing entry modes, even in the main game, are relatively easy, so being able to do them when you're buffed already from skills will make it super easy for anybody to come in and learn. The drop rates are multiplied, so you're more likely to see those purples, and the purples that it does drop, the rare, really unique items, are good for all three combat styles. It doesn't matter what combat triangle piece you pick for your relics. There's good ranged armor in Missouri. There's one of the best melee weapons in the game in Fang, and one of the best magic weapons, Shadow, are all located in Tombs of a Basket. And then you have some other uniques with Lightbearer, which is great for speccing things out if you have a Zerite crossbow or a Voidwaker or a BGS from one of these other regions. There's just so much that Tombs of a Basket offers that wasn't here last time, which is amazing. You have the Desert Treasure 2 bosses, so Desert Treasure 2 is now automatically completed when you come in, which means you automatically gain access to Leviathan, and then depending on what other regions you get, you can also unlock Whisper, Duke, and Vardorvis, all giving you access to Virtus and the Soul Reaper Axe no matter what. And then if you combo it with Fremenic, like we talked about, where you have the DKs, you now also have access to the ring slot, which gives you a damage multiplying ring, which is so good, and the only way of getting it. You also have Calphite Queen and Thieving, which are the two like big returning things from last region, which the Calphite Queen, it has that asterisk to it. It's a little bit new in the sense of you now have the Dragon Pickaxe here. That didn't used to be here. That update has happened in between these leagues. And so this now gives you a way of getting that Dragon Pickaxe without going to the desert or Volcanic Mine, now that that's a thing in Misthalin as well. And then Thieving, you still can probably expect some thieving, right? There's probably going to be some big thieving tasks. You have Pyramid Plunder, you have Blackjacking, you have Squirt Juices. And it's likely that at least one of those, if not multiple of those, are going to have some sort of large task tied to it, so that way there is some sort of skilling aspect still in this region. One thing I didn't throw on here actually that is also relevant and new is Temperos. I expect that that's going to be very fast with the minigame bonuses, so I don't think it's something that you really have to think about, hey, I'm going to be doing this all league, but it is new content that's really exciting considering that this region used to be kind of the last pick. It was something nobody took. People were considering the wilderness first over the desert last leagues, and now this is probably one of the best regions, depending on where you're going for most routes, which is so cool. And on that note of bosses, I do also want to touch on the gear that these bosses can give, because besides TOA, Leviathan, and Calphite Queen, there isn't much more in terms of bossing. But the gear that they drop is relevant, and there will be tasks tied to it. You can probably expect that there will be a TOA task to equip a full Missouri set. You can probably expect that there's a task to equip each of the other uniques, the Fang, the Lightbearer, the Lydness Ward, the Shadow, with each one progressively being harder and harder, right? Now, because of the drop rate multipliers, and because TOA is a team-based thing where you can increase the invocations and you can have 4 or 5 people, once you get to the max drop rate, which is actually 5x that was released a couple of days ago, that you can actually do like 450 invocation level raids with one other person, and between the two of you, you are guaranteed a purple every single raid. And if you can do those raids in an hour, you're basically will get in your name 1 purple an hour, which is so insane to me, because we were projecting that Shadow was probably going to be a 70+ hour grind, and that's actually probably closer to like a 30 or 40 hour grind to get the best mage weapon in the game, which is so good. As far as Desert Treasure 2, like I said, you automatically get Leviathan by picking the desert, because Leviathan is located in Misthalin, which everybody has. Now, Leviathan in the main game is typically killed with range, but if you're not going range and you're instead going a magic route, grabbing your Shadow, or even something as simple as like a Trident or a Warped Scepter, as long as the combat relics are as good as they were, if not better, than last league, you should be able to melt Leviathan with a mage weapon instead, and still do like comparable damage to what you do in the main game with like a Bofa, which is really good, and makes grinding out your Virtus set to complement the ancient spells that you get from this, as well as the Shadow for your mage bonus gear, all in one region, right? You unlock both that, so you get a full mage setup and the weapons all within the desert, which is so good for a mage route. And then lastly, I want to talk about the Calphite Queen. So the Calphite Queen is interesting where its uniques actually aren't amazing. You have the Dragon Pickaxe, which is good, right? It's the best-ish pickaxe in the game. You combo it with Tyrwin, you can get a Tool Seed to upgrade it to a Crystal, or Asgarnia to get the Infernal, right? But you need this Dragon Pick first in order to do those, and being able to do it passively while also getting kill count tasks completed. Like, if there's very likely to be like a 500 Calphite Queen task. But something that is new as well from last time is, because TOA now exists, you have the Karis Partisan. And it's likely that you'll probably have the upgraded Karis Partisan from the gem from TOA to kill this Calphite Queen super fast, to get the Dragon Chain, to get the pickaxe, right? To get the couple of uniques that this boss has and knock those off and get some pretty nice, quick, fast tasks knocked out of the way with these bosses. So don't sleep on it. These bosses, even though they might have high kill counts, because of the XP or the drop multiplier being 5x, these grinds might go way faster than we were expecting them to, which is so cool. So as we start talking about questing in the desert region, I do want to emphasize again that Desert Treasure 2 is auto unlocked, and along with that also follows all of the prerequisite quests for Desert Treasure 2. Now, the big highlight with that is Desert Treasure 1. It means you also get Ancients, but there's a lot of other quests in that, like Secrets of the North, that are auto-completed. You have a ton of quest points by just selecting this region. So if, for whatever reason, the Slayer unlock, or relic that most likely will exist, that lets you choose your Slayer task every time, is not something that is passively given. You actually have to choose. If you choose one of the other options, having a bunch of quest points means you have more blocks, which means you can actually curate your list. And this is by far probably the most quests that are auto unlocked by any given region. So you have a ton of quest points, which is really nice. Now, some other highlight quests that are in here. Like I said, you had Secrets of the North. You have things like Swan Song, Rune Mysteries. Some things to note is like the Waterfall quest is auto completed here. If you want to get some early experience and you're planning on doing Kandrin and the desert as 2 of your regions, if you do desert first as your first unlock, it will auto complete the Waterfall quest and you will not get the experience for that. But if you do Kandrin first, you can actually go and complete the quest, get the experience for Waterfall, get it with the XP multipliers, skyrocket in levels, and then when you come back and you select the desert for like your second or third region, it will auto-complete even though it's already done, and just allows you to get that extra XP. Same thing with things like Fight Arena is auto-completed by Desert Treasure 2. So you have to really keep in mind that you're missing out on a lot of quests that you might potentially actually want to do for the experience. The only other one that really unlocks anything for you is going to be Temple of the Eye, which is your quest that allows you to do Guardians of the Rift. Now you already have Mistalin unlocked, therefore you can go to the Wizard's Tower and you can actually do Guardians of the Earth immediately. The second you unlock this region, boom, you are in there and you can play the mini game, which is really, really cool. But that's kind of everything that Desert Treasure 2 auto unlocks. I would definitely go to the wiki, look at the prereqs, and make sure there's nothing auto completed that you want to actually have as a like an XP reward if you're planning on routing your early game around some quests. This unlocks so much that it may be worth pushing this off to the second or third region, just so that way you can do the other quests. Now, the other big quest line in this region is Beneath Cursed Sands. Now, none of this is auto completed for the most part. You get like the first one or two of these might double dip with Desert Treasure, but for the most part, you're gonna have to do most of these quests. Luckily, most of these give pretty good XP rewards with them, so with the multiplier, it's not like you're missing out too much. And getting this done unlocks Tombs of a Masket, which is massive for an account. You definitely can do some of these early, and with the drop rate multipliers, getting something like an early Fang is very, very reasonable to do. The last thing I want to mention is the Elite Diaries in this region. This diary is probably the best diary reward of any region and diary that's out there besides it itself, right? The reason for this is this gives you access to teleport directly to Narda. One click, and then you can use the statue that is there to restore everything but your stats. So your HP, your hit, your prayer, your special attack. And what this allows you to do, if you have a good spec weapon, something like the Void Waker, like a Dragon Claws, like a Zerite crossbow, where you can go to a boss, dump your spec as many times as you possibly can, and it probably just dies, and if it doesn't, you can pray against it and just live without using any food or prayer or anything, and you can just kill the boss. You can loot the boss, teleport to Narda, restore on the statue, last recall, boom, you're back at the boss, go. And it turns your solo instance bossing into super, super, super fast kills, which is insane. It's one of the best combos that there is. So very, very good. Highly, highly recommend. Now, when we talk about skilling in the desert, the thing that's really interesting about the desert when it comes to this is how high the highs are and how low the lows are. This is a region where the things that are good are actually like as best as they could possibly be in the game, and the things that are bad just don't exist at all, like they or might as well not. And as such, I want to kind of start with the two like big skills, 2 to 3 big skills that really emphasize how skilling is in this region, and then we'll kind of move on to the ones that are kind of just they don't really exist. So the first big one I want to talk about is Magic and Slayer. I'm going to kind of bundle these together, but because Desert Treasure 2 is automatically unlocked, you automatically get Ancient Magics, which means you get Ice Burst and Ice Barrage, which makes training magic so fast as long as you have a multi-combat area, which in the desert you do. You have access to the bandits. As long as you equip any item from an opposing god, they will automatically aggro you, and you will be in combat and be able to barrage them 6 hours straight without doing anything. And because bandits are on the Slayer list, assuming we have a relic or a passive that allows you to select your Slayer task, you can just keep choosing bandits over and over and over again, and you can AFK 99 magic, 99 defense, 99 HP, and 99 Slayer all at one location, because Ancient Magics are so good for this type of thing. And then depending on what other regions you get, you might be able to burst jellies, abyssal demons, Necreals, right? There's so many tasks that are really good burstable ones, but it's actually doable just within the desert itself. You don't need any combos, even though those combos are definitely better because you get some better loot from them. The bandits don't give you anything, but it's there, it's an option, right? Now, the next thing that we want to look at is actually thieving. So thieving, there's a lot of thieving tasks. I kind of mentioned this in the region game plan, but you have squirt juices, which last time you needed hours and hours and hours of squirt juices to turn them all in at once. And those squirt juices took a lot of time, but they were worth a lot of points. Likewise, you had Pyramid Plunder. You had to do one of every floor, right? Floor 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when you got to the top floor, you had to do like 500, 1,000 like laps of just that, of like going through the whole pyramid. And you can't last recall to it. You always start at the beginning of the pyramid. So it was a really long grind, and I expect at least one, if not both of those, will probably make a return. But you get so much experience doing those that going for those 25 mil, 50 mil tasks in this region is super doable. Another thing I do want to mention with thieving is they did leak the first relic, and that first relic, Trickster, allows you to never fail pickpocketing. The Menafite thugs and bandits, there's an option to pickpocket them. That's what you're doing, but you fail them because they're not knocked out. Theoretically, I don't know exactly how this will work or how it'll play out and how they have it programmed, obviously, but theoretically, you might be able to just click on them and pickpocket without actually having to blackjack. Turn them into like Artie Knights, which if their experience is as good as it is in the main game, and you're spending half your time just knocking him to the ground, the XP, if you don't have to do that, is actually going to be so good. Expect your XP rates to be in the millions of XP an hour. So thieving is super good, and you'll get double loot. Like, the GP is going to be nuts. You'll never have to worry about money to fund anything. It's going to be so good. Now, your other combat skills. We'll roll it back to the top of the list and kind of work our way down. So, outside of PVM, where you're doing TOA and bossing and stuff, right? These skills are actually all pretty bad. I'm going to mark defense as a do because you can do that with magic, right? But all these other ones don't really do anything for you. There's not much that they offer. You get like a mithril scimitar in the early game, some mithril armor, I guess, from the shops, but there's not really any good training spots. The Slayer tasks, for the most part, in this region are all kind of bad. There's not really any good training here, right? And same thing kind of with prayers. There's not really any good prayer training in the desert. You don't have any altars. You don't have any special bones of any type. So you're also going to skip out there as well. Now, rune crafting is interesting because in the main game, this is a do. Doing lava runes is so good, and imagine trying to do lava runes with last recall. That might be insane, but as it stands, we're Iron Man. We can't trade with other people. We have to do it by ourselves, and last recall will just make it better to go ahead and do these through something like ZMI or in Fremenic, like we talked about, the Astral Altar, right? There's better places for you to do this that maybe fire runes are the best you can do, but actually getting enough talismans to train rune crafting normally makes it a don't. But wait, there's one more. Unlocking the desert also gives you access to Guardians of the Rift. And with the minigame buff, Guardians of the Rift is going to be super fast. And I actually think that's going to flip it back. I think Guardians of the Rift is going to be a insane way of training rune crafting, because not only can you train it to get the extra runes, which depending on your combat style, you might need a lot of runes, right? But you also get access to the Scar Essence Mine. Now, what the Scar Essence Mine does is it allows you to get thousands and thousands and thousands of rune essence super fast, like in minutes, okay? And the biggest problem for most regions when it comes to rune crafting is there's no good way of getting rune essence in your region. And the Scar Essence Mine automatically makes that a non-existent problem, and then you need any altar, whether it's the Fire Altar, the Astral Altar, the True Blood Altar, like it doesn't matter, but once you have an altar and the Scar Essence Mine, you are set with last recall. It will be so fast, which makes rune crafting super good. Construction. You get nothing special with construction here. There's technically some teak trees over in Urza, but you have teak trees in Misthalin and Karamja, so you're just going to skip out on it. There'll probably be a task to like move your house to Livnich. Doing things like that for the diary and stuff will be needed, but actually training construction is just going to be something you're not going to do. Agility early game is really good. If this is like your first region unlock, you'll have access to the agility pyramid, which is another great way of making money. With the Trickster relic, you actually no fail it. So you can do it as like in the low 30s and jump on, and you'll just breeze through it, never failing one of the obstacles, and basically just get a sprint through the course for some really fast GP. And there might even be a like do 100 agility pyramids like task, in which case will be super fast and really good money. Herbs. Herbs are interesting because you don't have an herb patch here, but you do have a ton of seeds that TOA gives you that funds your herbs. I'm going to mark this as a don't do. I think in general, you're not picking this region to do herb lore, but do note that there is a lot of like snapdragons and Renar seeds that you get from doing TOA in pretty large quantities that will help fund your herb lore training through other regions in their farming patches. Now we already talked about thieving, so let's jump to crafting. Crafting is so good in this region, especially early. You have a gem trader in Al Qarin that sells uncut sapphires and emeralds, and they buy cut sapphires and emeralds, which means you can buy them, close the shop, open the shop, buy them, close the shop, open the shop, buy them, full inventory, craft them all, sell them all back, repeat. And you should profit GP doing this. So it is a infinite moneymaker for infinite XP in crafting from level 20 onwards. Now, there's probably better crafting methods out there to get better XP rates an hour, but for those early levels where you're just trying to get up to getting enough to where you can make your black bee hide and stuff, or make your first Zenite piece, this is so good. And you can do it from like the first region the second you walk in. So very, very strong. Fletching, no, there's nothing special. You have some magic trees here, but that's really not something you care about too much. We've already talked about Slayer. Hunter doesn't have anything new here. You technically have like the orange salamanders for some like mid-level hunter, but if you're going here just for those, you might as well just do Poro to skip those levels. Mining is amazing. You have the best mining in the game in granite and sand in the desert. If you're willing to do 3 tick methods, mining will be so fast and you'll breeze through it here, and it wouldn't surprise me if there ends up being some sort of relic that buffs it even more. Right now that hasn't been announced, but you can kind of expect with how they formatted the first relic that they leaked, that touched like 5 or 6 different skills, that will probably have different batches of those for all the different skills that will affect them in different ways, and mining will probably get hit and probably be even better. But even without getting like 16 times the XP of a 150k an hour method of granite mining, will make mining so fast, just hours to get 99, which is very, very strong. Smithing is also very good at this region. And it's not because mining is good so you're getting ores, but it's because you have Giant's Foundry, which is a pretty fun mini game. It's pretty reclined. It's not that difficult. You can go to Varrock and just buy mithril and steel plate bodies to fund all of the ores that you need for the minigame itself. So you don't need to worry about gathering resources and stuff because you're not doing that with mining anyway. And it just self-sustains itself. You'll end up making more money than from doing the mini game than you're actually spending on the mithril plate bodies and stuff. So again, it's a no-cost training method that has pretty good XP rates, all things considered. So smithing is very, very good. Fishing also has one of the newest pieces of content in Temperos. Now, Temperos will probably have a good chunk of tasks tied to it. It didn't exist last time, so it's hard to speculate whether it'll be KC tasks. You'll probably have like a Tome of Water task. You'll probably have get a Dragon Harpoon task, right? But it is considered a mini game, I believe, from the posts and leaks that I saw this week for their passive buffs, which means you can get 8x the points per game, which means you'll be looting like 80 rewards at a time. So it'll go super fast to get all those loots. Just passively on the way to 99, you'll probably get everything you want, green log that, with the caveat of maybe not the pet, but just get lucky. I believe you can get it. Likewise, cooking, because of Temperos, you have all this fish. That'll fund pretty much all of your cooking XP that you're going to need in leagues just by doing the Temperos grind. Fire making, you don't get anything special here. Nothing cool. Just move on. Same with wood cutting again. You have some teak, a couple of teak trees. You have some magic trees, but that's kind of it. And farming is also pretty bad. The only thing you actually have farming wise is the cactus plant, which honestly will probably have a task for it. When you're pickpocketing master farmers, keep a potato cactus and a normal cactus. You'll probably have to plant one of each for a task, but otherwise you're not farming at all. There's no reason to do it. So the last thing I want to talk about with the desert is the combinations of regions that it really supports. And this region as a main region actually has quite a few of these, because it's not really a supporting region. It's not there to just give you little bits and pieces, but there's actually a lot of things that overlap with this region. So the first I want to touch on is the Desert Treasure 2 bosses. Now, you automatically get Leviathan because you have Mistlin and Kromja, right? But by unlocking Karend or Asgarnia or Fremenic, you also unlock Vardorvis, Whisper, and Duke, respectively. Now, this might not be that big of a benefit for most routing because you have Leviathan. You can just kill Leviathan for all of the gear. The only asterisk of that is Fremenic, which is required in order to get any of the rings from any of the bosses. But besides the rings, they all drop the same loot. They all drop the entire Soul Reaper. They all drop the entire Virtus set. So there's not much point in jumping between them unless there's tasks to kill multiple of them, or kill Leviathan 100 times, and then there's also a task in Asgarnia to kill it 100, Whisper 100 times, right? Or something along those lines. The only reason I can think of that you'd want to like specifically take Desert and then choose another region for one of these bosses besides the ring is if you are going melee as your combat style. And the reason for that is you can't really kill Leviathan with melee because it's a water snake, right? It's sitting there in the water, you can't reach it. But you can take something like Karend and do Vardorvis, or you can take Fremenic and do Duke with melee, and those will be much faster and reliant on getting like your Soul Reaper axe or getting your Virtus set. So it's something to consider when you're thinking about combinations. The next one I want to talk about is the Wilderness. So TOA gives you the Elidness Ward, and you can actually fortify it with an Arcane Sigil from Corp, which is actually a really good offhand. The problem I have with this is, in general, if you're going to do TOA, you're probably not dual wielding. You're probably just rocking a shadow for basically everything, which is totally reasonable. Like, I understand, but it is there, and there's probably going to be points associated with that somewhere in the league, and that might be worth going for if the points are really overly weighted. Next one I want to mention is Asgarnia. Asgarnia gives you Armadillo Armor, which is a requirement to fortify your Missouri and make it more defensive. Equipping a full fortified Missouri set is probably going to be a master tier task, because not only do you have the Camp TOA, you also have the Camp Kree for the full set, which is pretty rare all things considered, and combine them in order to get that set created. You also get access to the Eternal Boots from this region because you have Cerberus. So things to consider. There is some pretty good unlocks from Asgarnia when comboing, both for magic and for ranged. And then you have Karend. Karend gives you the access to Arclight. It also gives you access to the Kodai Wand because you have to do Mage Training Arena for the Master Wand to upgrade it first. So lots of combinations to go, lots of things to choose, and overall I just think the desert is one of those regions that just offers a little bit of everything, like PVM wise, and then combines so well with so many of the other regions that it just fits into so many different routes. So really good region. Reminder to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.